על שלושה דברים העולם עומד,
על שלושה דברים העולם עומד,
על התורה ועל עבודה ועל גמילוס חסדים, גמילוס חסדים.
And welcome everybody to Learn Emunah with Rabbi Shlomo Nachman, and also with our dear friend and brother Donald Willinger. You'll be able to see me in just a second. It's always a bit of a trick getting these windows to work properly. There I am. And Donald will be here in just a moment. There he is. All righty. First, I'd like to begin by welcoming everybody that I can see on my Facebook Live, which begins with Donald Willinger. I think a couple of people actually logged in before him, but I can't see you. Marnie Usher is here, Jeff McCore, Guy Bertosky, Burhan Arol, Louis Enrique Fritas Padua. I always mess your name up, Louis. Please forgive me. Gert Rhubarb, Mary DeHart, and Carol St. George. Those I did not see, please know that you're still very, very welcome, and I'm glad that you're all here. Those of you who join later on, I'm glad that you're joining us as well. On Thursdays, we study the book, The Way of God, by the Ramchal, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. But before we do, we say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has made us holy through your commandments and has commanded us to engage in the study of the words of Torah. Please, Lord our God, make the words of your Torah sweet in our mouths and in the mouths of your people, the house of Israel, so that we, our descendants and their descendants and the descendants of your people, the house of Israel, may all know your name and study your Torah for its own sake. Baruch atah Adonai, who teaches Torah to his people, Yisrael. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has chosen us from all people and has given us his Torah. Baruch atah Adonai, giver of the Torah. So, again, welcome everybody. I am glad you're here. We finished chapter 4 of part 1 last week, and so we're going to continue this week with part 1, chapter 3, which will be man. Part 1, chapter 3, man. Now remember, in this study, what we're doing is the Ramchal is leading us to understand the role of the universe and everything in it, including humanity. The book was written a long time ago, ladies. I apologize, but it uses male in a generic sense, meaning all people. It's not inclusive language, so just so you know, you're included in almost all of this. And when you're not, it will be made very clear. So beginning with the subsection on page 45, the Rabbi Kaplan writes that the first subtext is about, or subchapter is about man's free will and his two inclinations. This is a very important topic to understand. So we continue. As we have discussed, man, humanity, is the creature created for the purpose of cleaving to God. Only man, humanity, is placed between perfection and deficiency, with the power to earn perfection. Man must earn this perfection, however, through his own free will and desire. If he were compelled towards perfection, then he would not really be the master of it. Rather, he who compelled him would be the one responsible, and God's purpose would not be fulfilled. It was therefore necessary that man be given free will, to be balanced between the good and the evil, between the light and the dark, between the selfish and the selfless, and not be compelled towards either side, knowing and willingly and possessing whichever one he chooses. Man was therefore created with both a good urge, which we call the Yetzer HaTov, and an evil urge, which we call the Yetzer Hara. He has been given the power to incline himself in whichever direction he desires. If you have any questions or comments on subsection 1, this is a very important point to understand. When Hashem formed, and that's the key word here, when Hashem formed Adam, you will notice in the text it is sort of unusual in the Hebrew. The word Yetzer should have only had a single yud, but in this one case it has two yuds. Y-E-T, Yetzer. There's really no grammatical reason for why the word Yetzer has two yuds. So the rabbis studying this out came to understand that Hashem was telling us that when he formed man, when he formed humanity, he gave us a dual nature. He formed us with a dual nature. Yetzer Tov, Yetzer Hara. Yetzer Tov, again, is our natural inclination to do something good. You see a crying child, you want to console it. You see a hungry person, you naturally want to feed him. You see a stray animal, you naturally want to help it. We are naturally good people. We naturally want to do what's right. But we also have Yetzer Hara, an evil or a negative inclination. We see a $20 bill laying on the counter and we think, score, and we slip it into our pocket. We are doing a business deal and we realize that if we just worded it a certain way, then the other party wouldn't know and we would have more money, have more power, have more fame, or whatever it is we're going for with the deal. This is Yetzer Hara. This is the path of darkness. This is the path of selfishness. We can choose, therefore, between selfless and selfish. This is the meaning of Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Ra. Yetzer HaTov, Yetzer the Tov, and Yetzer the negative. It's usually translated as the good urge and the evil urge. I don't really like that because we in the West have a connotation of evil that really is not included here. Evil certainly stems from the Yetzer Hara, but the Yetzer Hara is not limited to evil the way we think of it. It's more a negative. If you do something that you know is wrong, it's coming from the Yetzer Hara. If you rebel against Hashem, that's coming from the Yetzer Hara. If you know you really should be doing this, but you're not, Yetzer Hara. If you speak bad about somebody, we call that Lashon Hara, or actually good about somebody too, in an inappropriate way. Lashon Hara stems from the Yetzer Hara. And you'll even notice the name, Lashon Hara, evil or negative speech. So this is the point of subsection number 1. If Hashem had not created us with the ability to choose, we'd be like the animals. If you treat an animal nice, the animal will generally be nice to you. If you're mean to an animal, then it'll be mean. If you want, you can train the animal. When you hear this sound, it means food's ready, come running. That's not, however, how Hashem created us. He created us with the ability to think, to reason. Hashem says, come let us reason together. We can actually reason with God, if you can imagine that. It's a big part of what we do in Hit Bodadut. We're reasoning with Hashem. And this is unique, as far as we know, to the human species. Only human beings have the ability to reason. There's certain cognitive abilities in some animals. My dog knows, for instance, that if he walks up to me and sits down and looks up, he might get a treat. But again, that's only instinct. It's not reasoning. It's not thinking. We have the ability to think and to reason in ways that animals don't. And the only reason we have this is because we can choose between good and bad, between Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara. We will continue then on page 45 of Derech HaShem. We're reading Rabbi Kaplan's translation. Subsection number 2. Rav Kaplan says, body and soul as opposites, the war between them and its purposes. In order that God's goal should be best achieved, which, by the way, is something I didn't mention. When Hashem created us, when the Ein Sof, the unknowable, chose to create manifest existence, it was the will and the desire of the One to create duality between itself, himself, and humanity, and the world of nature. His will is that we should attach to him. We call this attachment devachut. His will is that we should attach our will to his will by choice, by free will. If he forced us, then it would not really be a choice on our parts. So, continuing. In order that God's goal best be achieved, the highest will decreed that man should consist of two opposites. These are his pure spiritual soul and his unenlightened physical body. Each one of these is drawn towards its nature, so that the body inclines towards the material, while the soul leans towards the spiritual. The two are then in constant state of battle. If the soul prevails, it not only elevates itself, but elevates the body as a whole, and the individual thereby attains his desired perfection. If he allows the physical to prevail, or, on the other hand, then he becomes lowering his body. Then he lowers his body. But also he debases his soul. Such an individual will be unfit for perfection, and will be kept far from it, God forbid. Even so, he retains the ability to subjugate the physical to his soul and intellect, and thereby achieve perfection. So this is something that a lot of people really don't understand. We have the Yetzer Tov and we have the Yetzer Hara, those two inclinations that we have. We also have a physical reality and we have a spiritual reality. Some people become so spiritual that they're physically useless in the world. That's not the will of Hashem. We have to marry the soul and the body. We use the body to enhance the spirit. If the spirit is enhanced, the body will follow. If the body is degraded, the spirit will follow. Some rabbis even go so far as to say, I don't know if he does here or not, but some rabbis even go so far as to say that without the body, there can be no restitution, there can be no redemption, because the soul is housed in the body and must be purified through the body. And this is a constant battle. When we're making this battle, we have to bear in mind the rules and the principles of Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara. Is what I want to physically do, what my physical body is craving, is this spiritually uplifting or is it spiritually degrading? Does this physical act lead me closer to God, or does this physical act draw me away from God? This is an ongoing struggle, an ongoing battle. Sam Ames has joined us. Donald says, Shalom and welcome to everybody. Please invite your friends to join us. My dear friend David Deutsch is here. Jim De Pasquale is here. Ricardo Ivan Calderon is here. Peter Bosch is here. Mary says she can't watch on Facebook, can watch on cell phone, but I can barely hear. I'm sorry about that. We do our best. Ministerio Elroy Va Vienna has joined us. David Cohen is here. Dennis Ocala has joined us. Welcome. I am glad that you are here. We are on page 47 of Rabbi Kaplan's version of Derech HaShem. So we have to marry the physical and the spiritual. Reminder, as we go along, I encourage you, not just invite you, I encourage you to share any questions, thoughts, or comments that you have related to what we're studying. At the end of this study, we'll have some time left, maybe about an hour or so, for general conversation and unrelated questions. But if you have questions or comments related to what we're reading, I would love it if you'd post those in the chat room. By the way, I just realized, Donald, I didn't welcome you today. I got right on a roll with the study here. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic, but I'll get better. Actually, my hip is starting to bother me and my leg again, both legs. So I'm back to using a cane, but, bright side is Monday, I'll go through the series of shots again and hopefully come out even better than I have been.
Well, we will keep you in our prayers.
So it's okay. Let me say hello to everybody. And I realized that you skipped that, but that was okay. I suffered. I mean, I cried and all of that. No, I didn't.
I'm sure.
But anyway, I want to say hello to everybody and thank you for being here. And if you would please go and if you look on your Facebook page there, it says share. And on the share, if you share, it'll say share with friends, which means anyone who's a friend on your list will receive it. If you just press share, then it leaves you a place to type something nice like all people, all are welcome, something to that effect. Anyway, I'm going to turn the show back over to you, Rabbi. Good to be here. And again, shalom to everybody. And in case I don't get a chance before the end of the show, and I don't see you tomorrow, Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you for that, Donald. Appreciate it. Shabbat Shalom to you, too, in the event that you have to go lay down or something. I know it's getting sort of bad again, so God bless you, my friend. We are definitely holding you in our prayers. So, on page 47 for subsection number 3, Rav Kaplan says, a time for striving, a time for enjoying the fruits of one's labor. God's goodness decreed that there be a limit to man's effort required to attain perfection. After this period of effort is completed, he attains his level of perfection and is then allowed to enjoy it for all of eternity. God therefore created two distinct periods, one as a time of earning and the other as a time of receiving reward. As a general rule, however, that which pertains to good is always the greater. The period of earning is therefore limited, and it lasts no longer than God's wisdom decreed suitable for his purpose. This period of reward, on the other hand, has no limit, and man continues to derive pleasure from his earned perfection throughout eternity. If you read the Siddur, or our prayer book, it will actually list for you the things that have a reward in this life, a reward in the next life, or a reward in most. And as Ramchal says here, notes here, the good always outweighs the bad. So if you are really, really in bad straits spiritually, just a little bit of good can overpower a huge amount of negative. A little bit of Yetzer Tov is much powerful than a whole lot of Yetzer Hara. Please forgive me. My throat doesn't do this when I'm just around the house, but then I don't talk so much. So anyway, I apologize for that. But so no matter who you are or where you are, you can apply yourself to Hashem and receive his blessings. A little bit goes a long way. Used to be a commercial back in the 50s and 60s that said, a little dab will do you. I think it's Brill Cream. When it comes to Emunah, a little dab will do you. Sam says hi. Bahmed Sakhur has joined us and says hello there. Eduardo Kubila Senkovic has also joined us. We're on page 47 of the Kaplan version of The Way of God, Derech HaShem, beginning subsection number 4. From the first time period to the second, man's basic makeup changes. Since the period of earning and that of reward are different, it is appropriate that man's environment and experience be different in the two. While he is striving towards perfection, he must be in a setting containing elements necessary for such effort. The period of earning must therefore be one where a maximum challenge exists and where the spiritual and the physical are in constant strife. In this environment, there must be nothing to prevent the material from prevailing and doing what it can, and conversely, there must be nothing to prevent the spiritual from doing likewise. Nothing should exist that would not give either one an inappropriate advantage. Although it might seem best to make the spiritual stronger than the physical, in the light of man's true purpose and what God demands of him, namely that he should earn perfection through his own efforts, it would not be good at all. In the period of reward, however, the exact opposite is appropriate. The more the physical would prevail, the more it would darken the soul and prevent it from being drawn close to God. During the time of reward, it is therefore appropriate that the soul prevail during the time of reward, and that the physical be totally subjected to it and not restrained at all. On this next point, Rav Kaplan says that the two worlds, this one and the next, are being discussed. It is for this reason that God created two worlds. The world, this world, of the Olam Hazah, and the world to come, the Olam Haba. The environment of the natural laws of this world are necessary for man during this period of striving. The environment and the laws of the world to come, on the other hand, are what are necessary for man during his period of reward. If you think about this point, there is a tremendous amount of information in this small little subsection. We are all trained as children to grow up thinking we know what the world is. We know how it works. We know the rules. We know the protocol. We know the etiquette. We know physical from spiritual. We know not to touch fire, we'll get burnt, and so on. We are taught these things as we grow up. And so we think we have a bead on reality. But the reality that we've got is directly impacted by the fact that we are living in the Olam Hazah, the world as it now is. In the Olam Haba, things are going to be very different. How different? We don't know. There's a lot of conjecture that we could go into, but I'm going to refrain from that. But the Olam Haba is going to be beyond what we conceive. It's going to develop gradually over a period of time. But as we elevate ourselves, as we purify ourselves, as we realize the Torah, which then will be written in our hearts, we're going to find that reality begins to shift. And that things that used to be impossible are now possible, beyond our wildest imaginations. We don't really know what the Olam Haba is going to look like, what it's going to be like. We honestly don't. But we do have enough to know that the limitations of the Olam Hazah will not all be applicable during the Olam Haba, the world to come. Guy says, oh boy, when I was a kid, mistake BC for toothpaste at my grandparents. I was 6 years old, I think. Yeah, you learn pretty quickly certain things, Guy. Lily Coopers has joined us. Joseph Zora has joined us with a cute little graphic again. And Lily says shalom. Donald says shalom. Lily says shalom to Donald. And another cute graphic by Joseph Zorsa. So we're on page 49 and continuing in Derech HaShem, the way of God. On subsection number 5, mankind's first sin is resulted in drastic changes in him and in nature. I know that many of the people who watch my videos are coming out of another religion. Some have become Noahides. Some have converted to Judaism. Some were non-observant Jews who are getting more observant as time goes by, as Bel Teshuvah. And by the way, you are all welcome here. But because of the background that so many people come from, everybody, or many people at least, have a different idea of that original sin concept. Before I read what Ramchal wrote, I just want to note, as Jews, we do not believe in original sin. We believe in original blessing. So this is an important distinction. So don't necessarily think in those terms. Think in the terms that we are looking at this material from. So, subsection 5. Among the things that one must realize is the fact that man has been radically altered. As a result of Adam's indiscretion or sin, a great change took place, transforming both man and his world to a large degree, entailing many things and having numerous effects. When we speak of man and his environment, we must therefore distinguish between his state before sin and his state after sin. He's going to continue talking about this, so I'm going to refrain from going into this too much, except to say that we were fundamentally altered, as he says. This is clear if you read the Torah. Rav Kaplan says of subsection 6 that the first man before his sin is the topic. When Adam was first created, he was precisely in the state that we have discussed until now. He was composed of two equal opposites, the body and the soul. His environment contained both good and evil. Again, I'd prefer to say positive and negative. And he was balanced between the two, to choose whichever he wished. In other words, he could choose Yetzer Hara or he could choose Yetzer HaTov. The appropriate thing for him to have done would have been to choose the Yetzer HaTov. Had he done so, his soul would have overcome his body, and the spiritual would have dominated the physical. He would have then immediately attained perfection, and it would have remained his forever. But as we know, that is not what Adam did. Questions or thoughts on subsection number 6? Miroslav Lav Amantutsky has joined us and says, Shalom, Rabbi. Donald says, welcome, Professor. Carol St. George says, before sin, we still have work to do, and will this continue in the hereafter? Great question. When you read the account in Bereshit or Genesis, you find that Hashem formed formed Adam on the sacred rock at the Temple Mount, not in Gan Eden. Then Hashem prepared and perfected the Garden of Eden. Then Hashem took Adam from the holy Mount, Mount Zion, Jerusalem, took him to the Garden of Eden, which was a few miles south of Baghdad in what is now called Iraq. It's a portion of Iraq that used to be part of Israel before we lost it. There, he named the animals, and there Hashem created Chava, or Eve, from his side. So that was the position. In their natural state, it is clear from the Talmud as well as from the Torah that they were beautiful beings. They had bodies, but their bodies were of a much higher vibration than our bodies are. They had vibrations of light. They were radiant beings that we really have a hard time even picturing. Because of Adam's sin, and by the way, notice we always say Adam's sin, not Eve's sin. Because of Adam's sin, Torah says Hashem dressed them or clothed them in flesh. This animal flesh, this heavy flesh that we have in our bodies. We were not like this before. That's how different we were. We were embodied, but we were embodied in very high vibratory spiritual forms. We don't know exactly what we look like. There are some writings from the first century that refers to people in this state, such as the Essene teacher of righteousness and others, who for at least limited periods of time possessed those types of bodies. But we honestly don't know exactly what they were like. We do know they were darkened when they were covered with this human flesh that we still have. We do know that we can approach great rabbis and we can actually almost sense or even see that they're almost glowing, that they're radiant people even within their human flesh. So, prior to the fall, the only thing they had to do was obey Hashem. Don't eat of that tree. Now, we don't necessarily know how literally to take that, but don't disobey Hashem. But being possessed of Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara, they chose to go their own way. They decided, I wish to not limit myself to what God says. I wish to find out for myself. This is both a blessing and a curse. A blessing because it was the actualization of our Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara, but a curse because it was a very bad decision that they made. Once we are in the Olam Haba, we will inherit, or we will receive back from Hashem's treasure house all of the mitzvot, all the goodness that we have done. And that will determine our level of purity at the beginning of the Olam Haba. In this world, spiritual development is very easy. It doesn't take that much to do a mitzvah for the most part. Very easy. And the rewards are far greater than the effort we put into doing the mitzvah. But in the Olam Haba, the Torah is going to be written on the heart of every one of us. Once you know the truth from within, doing it is not such a big deal. In this life, we have to ponder, do I really have to do that? This rabbi said that rabbi said this verse says this, that verse. I don't know, I get confused, but I'm going to apply myself. It's a lot harder in the Olam Hazab. In the Olam Haba, however, when the Torah is written on our hearts, we will all know what Hashem wants from us. Therefore, the result of our spiritual practice at that point will be considerably lesser than it is here in the Olam Hazah. I hope I'm making sense. So we can continue to grow exponentially in this life. In the Olam Haba, we will continue to grow, but we will continue to do so at a much slower pace. Eventually, everybody in the Olam Haba will attain to Devachut. Eventually, the entire world will find itself truly attached to Hashem. And at that point, what it's going to be is truly beyond all comprehension. When the entire planet is one, and Hashem is one, and as one, we worship our Creator with Devachut, with this attachment, it is going to be something that we cannot even dream of. But in the Olam Haba, it'll be like this world to a good degree. We will continue to work, we will continue to plan, we will continue to seek Hashem and to draw closer and closer to Him. It's a great question, Carol. Appreciate that. Donald said Adam was truly blessed. He had the most beautiful woman on earth. We don't know if Eve was a good cook, but she was the best one on earth. That's true. Carson Bishop has joined us. Lily says, sorry, Donald, that's just me. Mahalia Robbins Forrest has joined us. Delane Davis is here. Welcome. Glad that you're here. And everybody, if I'm not seeing you, please know that I'm glad that you're here as well. All right, so we are continuing on page 49 of Derech HaShem, subsection number 7. Rav Kaplan says, the soul's power to transform the very nature of the body. We are normally aware of the soul's existence only because it provides us with life and the ability to think. It is necessary to realize, however, that the soul also has another important function, to purify man's physical body, gradually elevating it until it too can take pleasure from the perfection along with the soul. So again, we talked about this in the last subheading, that you need the body and the soul to achieve your redemption. If you elevate your consciousness, your body will follow. If you lower your consciousness, your body will follow. Top of page 51. If Adam had not sinned, he would not have been able to attain this total perfection. His soul would have been purified. His soul would have purified his body step by step until he reached the level required to permanently partake of the everlasting bliss. Now, like I said, Adam's sin was both a blessing and a curse. If he had not sinned, he would never have known the opposites. He would never have known what it means to choose Devachut. But because he fell, he understood. And because he and all of our fathers and mothers until the time of Noah did the same, we continue to have the ability to strive for Hashem with understanding. This achieves a higher level of perfection in our teshuvah, because we know the pleasures of the flesh. We know what we're, quote unquote, giving up to become observant. And yet, those who do choose to do so anyway, because they know that Hashem is a higher taste than the taste of this world. I hope that's clear and makes sense. It's a very important point. Yaakov Shlomo has joined us. Guy says, I've heard people in my lifetime speak about seeing people's aura. Is that just bunk? I won't say that I have, but you sure see a lot coming out of humanity sometimes. To my knowledge, Judaism does not have a formal teaching on auras and the like. But as you know, Guy, I have studied the world religions in depth. This includes a lot of the occult arts. This includes a very wide breadth of spirituality. If you hold your hand up in front of a white wall, virtually anybody can see what looks like a milky substance going around the fingers. This is generally referred to as the etheric. Almost anybody can see the etheric. The etheric is the energies from your body sort of escaping. When I was a kid, I went on a March of Dimes walk one year in the pouring rain. And when we got to the finish line, me and the guy I was walking with just sort of threw ourselves down on the soaking ground, exhausted, and we actually had steam coming out of our body. That's essentially what happens with the etheric. It is basically the energy escaping the body. Almost anybody can see it. Like I said, hold your hand up to a white wall, look beyond your hand to the wall, and you'll probably see it. The aura is said to be more like a cocoon, more like an egg that completely surrounds us. Different schools of thought say it has different levels or layers. The average is 7 layers. I believe it's real, and could tell you personal stories why, but I'm not going to. So I believe it's real. But we do have to be very, very careful, because when we get into studies like that, like when we get into study of angels, most everything that is published on it is going to be occultic or quasi-occultic or religiously occultic. The Jewish mysticism does deal with some of these topics a bit as well. But I think auras and etherics are both real, Guy. And again, that's just my personal opinion. But that is a great question. So if you think about that, with the aura, you can get a sense that we do exist outside of our flesh. That once we attain perfection, once our skin, and I believe it'll probably be a matter of gradual lightening, personally, this is my opinion, but a gradual lightening of the body, not lightning in the sky, but lightening of the body, that etheric will actually be more like our actual shape, our actual appearance. And then the aura will stand to help us really perceive if the person is a master that we could trust or is maybe not so much of a master. That's just my opinion. Again, Torah and Talmud do not give real specific information on that. It is nonetheless a fascinating topic in my humble opinion. Susan Connor has joined us. Hello, Susan. Glad you're here. Kelsey Lynn has joined us. Mary Hart says, when you leave the body during near-death experiences, we all look the same. Bright, sparkly light, very beautiful. What is the part of the self in Hebrew? I don't know. Well, that is the nephesh. That is the soul. In a casual view, we all look the same, but there's definitely distinctions between what we sometimes refer to as astral bodies. But again, we don't want to go into too much of this kind of depth in this broadcast. But I have had several near-death experiences, and I have also had intentional exiting experiences, so I do know it's real. But it's not really the topic for a talk on Judaism. but that's also a good point and question, Mary, as you and I have discussed at some length privately. Donald says, shalom to folks. Susan says, I think it's neshama. It's the neshama or the neshama, if you're going to pronounce it, but it's the neshama. It's the soul of the person. And when we understand that the neshama is, be real careful how I say this. Ultimately, there's only Ein Sof. If that's all there is, then everything comes from Ein Sof. The neshama is coming directly from Ein Sof, and it is not. And when you can see the neshama, you're not seeing the limitations through the flesh, that is coding the neshama. Okay? So you are seeing a more divine perception of what humanity truly is like. We are actually closer to that concept of Ein Sof than we are to the concept of a physical being like an animal. Occultic or esoteric, true, but the dividing line between esoteric and occultic is actually not as broad as we might wish. Yaakov Uriel has joined us. So let's go ahead and get back to the book. Page 51. Rav Kaplan says mankind after the first sin. So, before the first sin, man is a beautiful being of light. Man is the neshama, but the neshama is still coded. This is actually a better way to say it. But the coding of that neshama is like crystal. It's pure, it's translucent, and you're actually virtually looking at the neshama when you look at Adam and Chava before their sin. After the sin, Hashem clothes them with flesh, with animal skin, and we become like the animals to that. Guy says, one day I'd like to go deeper on the subject. We can do that, Guy, privately. I'd be happy to talk to you privately about that, but I don't want to go too deep into this subject on a public broadcast. I have found that to be problematic on many, many levels. So, page 51, subsection number 8. Donald says he agrees. When Adam sinned, however, things were greatly changed. The amount of evil that existed initially was just enough to assure man would be in a perfect balance, allowing him to gain perfection through his own efforts. When man sinned, however, he caused evil to increase, both in himself and in those of the creation. As a result, it became much more difficult for him to attain the perfection that God intended for him. On the show yesterday, was it yesterday? I guess it was yesterday. I used the example of a balance like this. When Adam and Chava were created, they had a balance. My hand shakes. This isn't quite balanced. It's not your eyes. It's my hand. But we were perfectly balanced like this, with a slight tendency towards the good, just slight. We were pretty much balanced. But Adam and Chava chose to follow the negative path of their own liking. And then they gradually began going this way to the negative side. And then a little bit more. And then we got to Noah, and by the time of Noah, it was more like this. So Hashem said, that's not what I wanted. So he destroys the earth except for Noah, establishes the Noahide covenant so the Gentiles will know, well, actually at that point, so everybody would know how to serve Hashem. That way, we have the ability to bring it back. History of humanity, since the time of Noah until today, is the history of man trying to go from this, because I was going to the right, it should be this way, going from the left here, straightening it back out. Most people are sort of like this. They're good people. They've got some negativity in them for sure, but they're basically good people. Most people are generally good people. But we have other people who are more like this, and we have a few like Hitler who is more like this. All of this has to balance out to get humanity back to this balance point. That is the history of the human race. It is seeking to restore the balance that we, by our choice, threw away. That's what we're trying to do. The rabbis tell us that if every Jew will intentionally return to that balance, Mashiach would come and the Olam Haba would begin. But Jews, like everybody else, being human, don't always do the right thing. So, but this is the point here, though. We're trying to restore that balance. The purpose of the Jew is to be the leaders in that as a nation of priests, a holy nation. The role of the Noahide in this is to assist the Jews in making this world a more balanced place. We're not looking to turn everybody into Sadiqim, righteous people, saints. We're looking to restore the balance, because the balance is what we need as a species, because from that balance, we're able to make wise decisions and draw ever closer to Hashem. As we do that, we are bringing in the Messiah. And again, if you have any questions or comments, you're more than welcome to share them. So we continue on page 51, third paragraph. At first, it was very easy for man to overcome his natural faults and to attain perfection. The highest wisdom, I've mentioned this before, when Ramchal used the term highest wisdom, he's referring to that wisdom that comes from Ein Sof, this highly exalted wisdom beyond our conception. The highest wisdom arranged things in the best and fairest manner. The only reason why evil and deficiency existed in man was to make it part of his nature, a part that he would willingly abandon in favor of the good. By simply disassociating himself from his deficiencies in both himself and the world, and by the way, this is what we call tikkun olam, repairing the broken, the first man was supposed to bring about perfection immediately. No further effort would have been necessary. But when Adam sinned, he personally caused a concealment of perfection and thus an increase of evil. Man himself became responsible for this greater amount of evil that existed within him. It therefore became much more difficult for him to abandon it. He could no longer earn perfection as easily as when he personally bore no responsibility for his personal deficiencies. The effort required to earn perfection was therefore doubled. Man must first bring both himself and the world back into a state that existed before the first sin. That is our job as human beings. Only then can man raise himself up to the state he is destined, for his destined level of perfection. Think about it this way. This might make it sort of clear. If you have a child, a boy under 12, a girl under 13, your child is basically a greedy little booger as a kid. He's looking at her, I want to eat, I want to sleep, I want to eat, I want to sleep, I want to eat. That's what babies want. As the baby gets older, however, the baby begins to recognize the parent, and he gets the sense of love. And then he gets to a point where he really wants to please his parents. Gets a little bit older, then he starts wanting to rebel against his parents. Just natural human nature. When the child hits bat or bar mitzvah age, the child becomes responsible. In the same way, Adam and Eve, in perfection, came to the point of being bar or bat mitzvah kids. They were not necessarily children, I'm not saying that. But when they got to the point of personal responsibility, what they did began to have a heavy impact on what followed. The goal of the human race is tikkun olam. It is to look around and to prepare the brokenness that we see in our world. That is the highest thing a human being can do. Service to others to make this world a better place. Stephen Ewing has joined us. Hi, Stephen. Glad you're here. So this is really the point here. We are supposed to use our freedom of will in the service of the Most High and in the service of our fellow beings. We're referred to as the caretaker of the earth. That means not only are we supposed to help our fellow humans, we're supposed to help the animals, we're supposed to make the world look like paradise, we're supposed to, weed gardens and help beautiful flowers to grow. We're supposed to make a difference in this world for the good. That is our ultimate goal and purpose as human beings. My dear brother David Breimer is here from Israel. Welcome, David. Glad you're here. So, subsection number 9 on page 51, Derech HaShem. Man's body and today's world both must perish and be rebuilt anew. This is Rab Kaplan's comment on subsection number 5. Besides this, justice decreed that neither man nor the world would ever be able to rise to perfection while still in their current fallen state. Because they remain in this spoiled, non-ideal condition, and evil in the meantime has increased, both must go through a stage of destruction before either of them can arrive at a stage of perfection. Page 53. Men must therefore die, and everything else that was corrupted with him must also perish, because the soul cannot purify the body until the body dies and deteriorates, and a new structure is composed, that the soul can enter and purify. The entire world must likewise be destroyed, and cease to exist in its present form, and it must then be renewed in a state worthy of perfection. It was therefore decreed that man should die and then be brought back to life. This is the concept of the resurrection of the dead, or Tekiyas ha-Masim. The entire world must similarly be destroyed and renewed. This is the meaning of what our sages wrote: 6,000 years will the world exist, and for 1,000 years it will be desolate. And at the end of the 1,000 years, God will again renew his world. There is much writing, much theory, much ideas in the Talmud and among our rabbis about precisely how the Olam Haba will come to be. This is one of them. This idea of the resurrection of the dead, rabbinic Jews, Pharisaical Jews, have always held to the belief in the resurrection of the dead at the end of days. Most of us throughout history and today, a larger percentage of Jews believe in what is referred to as Gilgul Neshamot, the rolling of the souls. This is the belief that when the body dies, it returns in another body. And it does this at various times throughout the Olam Hazah until finally attaining to the Olam Haba, the world that will be. Most of the rabbis and sages that I've checked out do not believe at the end of the War of Magog the planet is actually going to be destroyed and left desolate. That's more of a metaphor. Just as Hashem told Adam, the day that you eat of the fruit, you will surely die. He didn't die that day. But death entered into his existence, and he was destined to die. So likewise, at the end of the Olam Hazah, the world will die. That evil system will be over, and then will be resurrected or reborn as the Olam Haba. Again, the rabbis and the sages differ on exactly how this process is going to come back. There's also a lot of debate on exactly how Gilgul Neshamot will work. I believe personally we've all been coming back over and over again since the days of Moshe Rabbeinu, when all Jews were present at Mount Sinai and personally accepted the Torah. Others believe that the soul will come back a few times to be given the chance to do what it needs to do. Some believe we only come back once. So we're debating on this point. For Judaism, the central point is this life. What are you doing now in this life? Are you taking full advantage of this life? There's nothing you can do about the past, whether you lived before or not. Nothing directly that you can do about the future if you're going to come back. This life you can impact. And if you take advantage of this life fully, you will find that you will awaken in the Olam Haba, Derech HaShem, as Hashem wills. But our sages really don't focus on too much specificity when it comes to how the Olam Haba is going to happen and the nature of the human soul. We simply want people to take advantage of this life to the best ability that they can. Donald says that's the reason that none of us should ever feel like a heel, because all heels have a soul. I've mentioned before, by the way, that I do have memories of my past life, and so even before I'd ever heard of Gilgul Neshamot, I was always convinced that I had been here before. Lily says, I'm so sorry, I must go again, dinner time. If I don't see you again, have a wonderful Shabbos. You too, Lily. Carol says, I must go as well and rest. Thank you, Carol. I appreciate you as well. May God bless you with excellent health. So, if we don't have any questions on that, this would probably be a good place for us to end today anyway. So we're going to end here on page 53. And next time, Derech HaShem, we will begin with subsection number 10, or subsection, not 10, why am I saying 10? Yeah, 10. Subsection 10. That's where we will, Derech HaShem, continue next Thursday when we get together again. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you'd like to share anything about the book or anything else, then we've got a bit of time that we can discuss these things. Any questions, thoughts, or comments? Donald, how about you? Donald may have had to step away as well. So, just a reminder, we are currently in the month of Elul, and Elul is the month that leads us up to the High Holy Days, which begins with Rosh Hashanah and technically ends with Yom Kippur. Following that, there will be the festival of Sukkot, the festival of booths. So this is a very important time of year, and particularly during the month of Elul. Elul is said to be the month that Hashem walks among us. During the month of Elul, the metaphor that we use is of Hashem walking the earth, looking for people that he can forgive, looking for people who are far away from him that he can reestablish his connection with. So normally we think of Hashem as seated on a throne, and we have the Emunah that says that we can go to Hashem in prayer. But during the month of Elul, we have the understanding that Hashem is actually looking for us. He's actually leaving his throne and walking among us. If you look in the chat screen, I'm posting a link to my study on Elul. So this is a very important time of year. The House of Seven Beggars, we have now as I mentioned before, I'm now the associate rabbi of the House of Seven Beggars. Rabbi A and I have developed a schedule. I will be leading services at the House of Seven Beggars every Shabbat before Rosh Chodesh. So every Shabbat prior to the new moon, you can find me at the House of Seven Beggars leading the services. The High Holy Days are coming up, and Hashem has sort of, Rabbi A and I have come to the conclusion that it would be better for him to lead the services this year during High Holy Days. Next year, we will divide those up. So, but we do the High Holy Days. So if you have not yet signed up with us, I truly hope that you will, because there is a huge amount to learn, a huge amount to find during the High Holy Days especially. The High Holy Day services are longer and go into a level of depth that you don't normally find in really any of our ministries. And we are now located on the Keruv Media Network. I apologize for my lack of clarity there. I was pulling up a link. We have now created a new media outlet referred to as the Keruv Media Network. The idea of the Keruv Media Network will be a place that anytime you go there, someone of quality will be broadcasting a live program. We'll also have a great many recorded videos and broadcasts that you can watch as well. From now on, beginning last Sabbath, every Sabbath service at the House of Seven Beggars is going to be broadcasted live on the Keruv Media Network, not on our House of Seven Beggars website. It will now always be on the Keruv Media Network website, as will Rabbi A's studies after the High Holy Days when he begins doing his studies again. At the Karuv Media Network, which I'm now posting a link to, I just checked, and we now have 45 members of our new program here. In order to get a custom URL, we need 100. So right now it is youtube.com/channel/UCSILB. It's a horrible, horrible name. We want to be able to have channel/Karuv Media Network. We need you. If you have not yet subscribed to the Karuv Media Network, please do it for us, if not for yourself. We need people to subscribe to the network. Right now we need 48 or so, if I'm counting right. So we're, no, that would not be right. 48, we need, we have 42, huh? We have 42. We need 100. We need 58. Thank you. My math is just absolutely terrible. We need 58 people to subscribe to the House of Seven Beggars at the Karuv Media Network. And I'm hoping that everybody watching these broadcasts will do that. Welcome to Asidu Natan. Welcome, Asidu, from Ghana, one of my friends from Ghana. Glad that you're here. So please do sign up with us for that at the Karuv Media Network. Sabbath services are going to be, as always, Friday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Sabbath morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And be sure and check 7beggars.com and my feed and Rabbi A's feed for the holiday schedule once that is released, which I don't think it is yet. Susan says that the holidays are a marathon. They're incredible. This is very, very true. 42 right now. One of the things that Rabbi and I were considering was that YouTube has a limit of, he said it was 4 hours of live streaming, and then they cut you off. And so if I did it this year, we would have to parse it into different broadcasts, and it's a lot of logistics. It's easier for him just to do it again this year, and then we'll have more experience with the Karuv Media Network under our belt. I'll be more familiar with the system as well, and we'll be able to figure out how to make this work in a better way. So I'm going to be doing the Sabbath services every month prior to Rosh Chodesh. I'll also be doing the Sabbath service on the Shabbat before Rosh Hashanah, so Rabbi A gets a little bit of a break before what Susan correctly refers to as a marathon. And it is an incredible marathon. So please join us at the House of Seven Beggars, allfaith.com, on the Karuv Media Network. Tonight, join us as always at 8 p.m. in our Noahide group, One God, Seven Laws. And there you will find a lot of really good information. At One God, Seven Laws, it is a Noahide group, but the online broadcast has become something more than that. Rabbi A is able to join us sometimes. We talk on various topics that will be a blessing, I think, to you, whether you're Jewish or a Noahide. To join the Thursday evening group, you have to first join, Susan, they call it Terrible Tishrei for a reason. You have to join the One God, Seven Laws group first. So I just posted the link for that. So if you would join us at One God, Seven Laws, you're going to have to answer some real basic questions, but we need those questions to be able to approve you. So please answer the questions on the page, and then we will be able to add you to the group, and then you'll be able to watch the video just like you do here on my wall. It'll just show up at the top of the page like a video. Let's see here. We also have on Sunday morning, Ahuva and I, Derech HaShem, will be continuing with our study of the Garden of Emunah by Rabbi Shlomo Nachman at noon Eastern on my wall here on Sunday. Then at 8 p.m. Sunday evening, our All Heart group does a non-broadcasted Facebook hangout. The All Heart group is a group of Tikkun Olam. It's a group for making things to make people feel better. They did a wonderful batch of baby blankets, lap blankets, and now they are making these really cool bracelets that they're going to be distributing to kids in the hospital and that kind of thing. Here's the link to the All Heart group. Anybody who is nice and not confrontational is welcome to join the All Heart group. The point of the group is for Tikkun Olam, is for making these things. That's the purpose of the group. If you're not interested, don't bother joining. If you would like to actively take part in the Tikkun, then we need you to click the event box that you'll see there that Veronica Port always posts. She can't be here today. She has to do something else. Tell Veronica with that link that you want to attend. Then send Veronica your private or your email address that you use with Google Hangout. Veronica will call you shortly before 8 p.m. Sunday evenings East Coast time to invite you to the group. The Hangout is only for people who are actively doing the thing right now, making the bracelets. If you don't know how to make bracelets, you're welcome to join. They'll show you how. If you know how to make bracelets, you're welcome to join. You can help them make nicer bracelets. So it's open for everybody, but the broadcast is specifically for people who are doing the creating of these projects for Tikkun Olam. So if you're interested, please do join us for that. Also, Donald has primarily a group, it now has 98 members. It's growing nicely, called Kosher Cooking. Here's the link for that. Kosher Cooking is a place where everybody who's interested in kosher foods are welcome. It's Kooking, Kosher Cooking with K's, solely for the purpose of making it stand out from all the other kosher cooking groups, because there's a bunch of them. Hang on just a second. Go ahead, Donald.
And those of you who are looking for recipes, kosher recipes, or have kosher recipes, or you have questions about how to make something kosher, those you're welcome to ask every question in the book regarding kashrut, okay, and how to cook this, how to prepare food, such as how to wash lettuce, how to do broccoli, and things like that. These questions do come up, and we have a former kosher restaurant restaurateur, I guess you call him. He owned a restaurant. He's now retired, and he's totally available. And we are talking in the near future of actually broadcasting a show there on cooking. So it's not that we want that you can only be there if you're living, completely kosher, because maybe you want a recipe to how to make kosher dill pickles and things like that are truly kosher. That's what it's all about. Anything and everything you want to talk about in kosher cooking, we're more than happy to have you. Any recipes you would like to post or you would like to have, please certainly indicate that in the group. Everyone is welcome to that group.
You can also ask questions about about growing foods that would be considered kosher. Not all vegetables are kosher unless you do some certain specific things like broccoli and whatnot. So if you have any questions at all, like Donald said, you're more than welcome to join the group. I don't normally go through too many of my groups here, but just to let you know, here's another group we have called Zionist Issues. Zionist Issues is a group that focuses on causes in Israel. What is a Zionist? What do Zionists do differently than non-Zionist Jews? Not all Jews are Zionists. Many Christians are Zionists. In fact, there's actually more Christian Zionists than Jewish Zionists. So any questions you have about Zionism, parentheses here, I said accurately, in many cases, more Christians are Zionists than Jews are. However, this is not a group to talk about Christianity. But if you are a Christian Zionist, you are welcome to join this group and talk about Zionism. This is a group to discuss Zionist issues. Another group that I offer, I'm posting now, is called Echoes of the Holocaust. or Shoah Echoes, because Echoes, the other name was already taken. We call it, the name of the title is Shoah Echoes, but it's actually Echoes of the Holocaust. My dear friend Rabbi Bernard Rosenberg was born in a German misplaced persons camp. He has an amazing, amazing story. So I created this group for/with him, in part because he has a book called Echoes of the Holocaust. He advertises his book on the group, but it's also open to all of the people, and there are many on the group who are Holocaust survivors. And there are many more like Rabbi Bernard who were born just after it. In his case, he was born in a displaced persons camp. It's also for the children and the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren of Holocaust survivors. And it's for anybody who has an interest in the topic of the Shoah and the experiences of those who lived. Some of the posts on this group will almost bring you to tears. I don't actually post much to it. I'm pretty much leaving this one up to Rabbi Bernard. But this post gets some incredible stuff. I was speaking with Rabbi Bernard earlier today, and we haven't yet set a date, but I am going to be doing an interview with him on our Wednesday broadcast of What Now with Shlomo and Donald. Rabbi Bernard Rosenberg has been one of my staunchest supporters since I've been online. And when I began letting people know, rabbis know, that if they had a blessing for my shmika, I would appreciate it, Rabbi Rosenberg fired his off immediately. He is an incredible, incredible rabbi. He's one of my mentors, more on the political side of things than the religious side. He's a controversial man because he speaks his mind. And some people don't like that. I like blunt people personally. Rabbi Bernard is awesome. And he will be appearing with me, Derech HaShem, in the not too distant future on What Now, our Wednesday broadcast. Another group I have is called Boycott Hatred Against Jews, previously known as Boycott Jew Hatred, but apparently people misunderstood the title, so I changed it to Boycott Hatred Against Jews. Here's the link to that one. It's called Sears Boycott because it started as a boycott against Sears because Sears online stores were selling Nazi paraphernalia. The Sears boycott, us and others, got Sears to pull all of that disgusting stuff from their website. Facebook would not allow me to change the name of it after that to something more generic. So it's still, the URL is still Sears Boycott. But Boycott Jew Hatred, we invite people to share or read anything about current hatred against our people, against attacks against Jews, boycotts against Jews, discrimination against Jews in any way. Anti-Semitism in colleges is currently a big topic over there. But we're sharing information about terrible things, and also online. We were one of the groups that was actively involved in getting Facebook to remove some of their posts that were hardcore anti-Semitism. I have a hard time with censorship because I believe in freedom of speech, and but some of the stuff that's been posted on Facebook is hurting our young people who don't know any better. There has to be some limits. So we were involved in that effort to try to get the internet cleaned up a little bit. So anything about that you might be interested in, we would invite you to join us for. Another group that I offer, didn't know I had this many groups, did you? Actually, probably you did. Most of you are members of all of them. But another one is called America Stands with Israel. This group was part of a program that I had a few years ago where I was trying to organize people to go out and do parades for Israel once a month. That effort sort of petered out. We were victorious. We got some changes done in Chico where we began this at. But America Stands with Israel now is simply a chat area for discussing issues concerning America and Israel. The topics vary widely on that. So if you're not a member of any of those groups, I would invite you to join them. And so, Donald, do you have anything you'd like to say in closing today? Or does anyone else have anything that you would like to say?
Not really. I think you covered it all. We've had a lot of events happening that are going on in Israel right now. One of the things that was not covered in the news yesterday, because I didn't learn it until after our show, most people are unaware of it, but Israel has now made it public that it literally is prepared to annihilate Hamas and their leadership, overthrow them.
I saw that.
Without any warning at all, and all they're waiting for is a decision to be made by the UN as to whether or not there's going to be peace. Otherwise, Israel is set to end Hamas permanently.
Amen. And then hopefully Jewish settlers can go back into Gaza and we can get our land back there.
Well, this is all one of these situations where it's hoped that the action isn't there. And personally, and I'm speaking solely as an individual here, I believe that's a big mistake, that Israel should no longer wait. They should go ahead and overthrow Hamas completely. And the reason I say that is because during this interim period, I can assure you they're building up their weapon supply and everything else.
They are, but frankly, they can't touch Israel. I mean, Iran can't hurt Israel. Hamas certainly can't do any damage. They're having a hard time getting kites to fly over. I mean, if Israel wants to take out Hamas, they'll blink twice and Hamas will be gone. I personally don't like it because I don't like to see people die. And there's an awful lot of people in Gaza who really are good, sincere people who are not terrorists. And I hate to see that.
They will not be. It will not be. Hamas is even admitting the people who've been killed recently are Hamas or family members of Hamas.
No, I understand that. Israel goes out of its way. Israel actually, when they're getting ready to bomb a place, actually flies planes over and drops leaflets saying, "We're bombing your house in 20 minutes, run." I mean, no one does that kind of stuff.
This is not the intel that I've been given, sir, is that this will not be that kind of an attack.
No, I know, and that's my point. If they're going to do this now, what you're talking about, and I saw that
assassins,
right.
They will be assassinated. There will not be.
You can't assassinate all the leadership and the soldiers of Hamas. You can't.
At one time, yeah, they can.
No.
Trust me, they'll blow them all up. And
well, they're going to have to drop bombs, is what I'm saying.
Right, but what I'm saying is, those facilities will not receive notice because of 100%.
No, I got you. I'm just saying civilians always die in attacks.
Not in this case. There would be like 1 in 1,000 possibility of a civilian. The places they're going to be attacking.
Most of their places are placed in neighborhoods.
This is the reason that Israel is very hesitant right now. Right. Is that what they tend to do? What Hamas tends to do is make certain that they are surrounded by innocent bystanders.
Right. And
what has been set up now will eliminate that particular issue from happening. They have ways of doing that.
Yeah, by the way, can you turn off the bird without too much trouble? It's just really annoying.
I'm sorry, that is the live bird.
Oh, that's the live bird. Okay, don't turn it off then. Don't turn it off then. We never will turn off live bird.
I told you she was already upset with me the other day because she told me, one, she was a vegan, and two, she didn't like me eating chicken.
Right, you told us that. But back real briefly though to Gaza. My point, I'm not disagreeing with. I totally agree with you. But my point though, because the UN is not going to rectify this. My point is simply though that no matter how careful Israel is, if they're going to do what Netanyahu said they're considering, which is ending Hamas. There is going to be civilian casualties. There's no way around it. And I hate to see that. However, in the Gaza, Hamas was actually elected by the people of Gaza. And the people are responsible for the leadership they elect. And I hate to see it happen. God forbid it should happen, and I do hate to see it. However, I totally stand with Israel in whatever decision they make, including annihilating Hamas. Kathy Ivester Whitworth has joined us. Hi, Kathy. Glad to see you again. Guy says, didn't answer the questions on the last two you posted. I can if you want. Oh, you don't need to, Guy. Don't worry about it. You can join Donald and Kelsey and any of the other admins here. You all know Guy. Guy applies to anything we do, approve and please. Don't worry about Guy. Kathy, just to let you know what we're talking about, I just posted links to a bunch of my groups. And everybody, you're all also welcome to join any of those groups if you'd like to. David said, not so innocent bystanders. The population continues to. Well, that's what I said too, David. In Gaza, in some places, you sort of get stuck with the leadership you get because there's a coup, or because a majority voted for Hamas doesn't mean everybody wanted Hamas. But in the case of Hamas, it was huge, almost unanimous. They wanted to go with the terrorist network. So I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying my heart goes out for the innocent people who are going to die. And I think that's something that all Jews would agree with. I hate to see what's going to happen there. But Israel has to do something. They cannot continue to allow these barbarians to attack the country and not react. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. And if Israel chooses to do that, they have my full support. Not that my support matters, but I totally support them doing that because Israel, I think, has already been too patient. Israel has already been too forgiving, too giving. Too much land, too much stuff has been given away that should never have been given away. The settlers should never have been driven out of Gaza in the first place. So I support it. It just saddens me to think what human ignorance is going to be responsible for when Israel acts. I posted a piece yesterday. I think I posted it. I think I posted to America Stands. But by a leader of the Israeli Knesset who said, it's not a question of if we attack, it's a question of when. So I'm very saddened by all kinds of things sadden me. The idea of Israel having to innocent people dying in the attacks, I'm really saddened to see that. But, again, Israel really has no choice. So I'm not saying anything different than Donald. I totally agree. It just saddens my heart to see warfare. There's absolutely no reason, except for religious bigotry, that Hamas did what it did. Israel gave Hamas billions of dollars, tons and tons and tons of steel and concrete, and said, turn Gaza into a Muslim country. Establish yourself. We suggest a tourist attraction so that Israelis can come down and join the sea. That'd be a good income for you. They took the money and they decided to use it to make war against Israel. Stupid, stupid, stupid. And the chickens are about to come home to roost, as a certain minister once said of America. But no, it's just sad. It's just sad. Do we have any other thoughts or comments before we end today's broadcast? Bonsoir. However, unfortunately, Yosef, we do have a rule here that says all posts have to be made in English. This is an English-speaking post. We're a little bit patient when it comes to Hebrew, but when it comes to French or any other language, the language really does need to be in English. But no offense. But no one here, with maybe a couple exceptions, can read French. So please repost that in English. It's perfectly fine using a translator. We understand translators, but thank you, though, for your comment. Lee Egbert has also joined us. Hi, Lee. Glad that you're here. Do we have any more thoughts or comments before we close this one down? Any questions, any comments about pretty much anything you want to talk about? Other than the inner teachings of the Kabbalah.
Well, I think that we've had a lot of things that are going on in the world today. A lot of political things, of course. Fortunately, Israel they're having quite a bit of things. In case somebody did not notice it in this last riot, if you want to call it that, there was, in fact, uh, an assassination that was actually executed um, from across the border. And so that took a sniper shot, and Israel is at this time investigating who was responsible for it. This was not their normal, this is not what Hamas normally does, so it raises some issues.
Right.
You know, the other thing that, I realize that no one wants to see anyone die. Do realize that in this world, we are the smallest population, I think, of all people, and that we represent 0.07%. It may be 0.08 by now of the world's population. In essence, to equalize the balance of deaths, if you will, and I hate using that term, but it's true. We hear this word disproportionate. If you figure out the number of Muslims in the world compared to the number of Jews in the world, it works out that every Jew, to be equal, for every Jew killed, you'd have to kill 1,000 Muslims. So I want you to put your thinking caps on to what this means to us. It is interesting that the world tells us if we lay down the weapons, the war will end. We tell the world, you lay down the weapons and there won't be any problem. The problem if we lay down the weapons is we will not exist.
Right. Absolutely. We, by the way, are not anywhere near the smallest group. People like the Igbo, we have a Igbo here. People like the Igbo are smaller in population than we are. Cherokee people are smaller in population than we are. Many people are smaller in population-wise than we are. However, of the world leader, of the world leading people, we are the smallest.
Right.
Wanted to clarify that. I didn't want some
good.
Other friends to think.
Good point.
Yeah, there are some very, very small groups of people who are still surviving.
Right. We as a country, if you will, because Israel is a Jewish nation, and that has created a lot of flack in itself, which I think interesting, because if you look at the Balfour Agreement and everything else, it was the home of the Jews. And now that it's been made officially the home of Jews, everybody and their dog is complaining.
I'm glad they finally did it.
Well,
Guy says,
make a people completely happy.
Right.
And this is where it really, I don't understand it. It's too normal for me to relate to. Now I'll give you back the mic.
Thank you, sir. Guy says, or as my granny would say, I wring their necks. She looks like a pitcher winding up. Bahmed Sakur says, may you please inform me on the subject. Well, what we do on Thursdays is we're actually reading this book, Derech HaShem, The Way of God, which is a book about sort of the Jewish understanding of the nature of God. We do that for the first hour, and then the second hour we open up for general conversation, comments, questions, and the like. We did get on this time to a little bit of politics regarding Israel and the Middle East. We normally don't do that, but we do occasionally. And that has been the topic. That was the topic when you signed on. But again, that's not really the topic of the broadcast. The broadcast is the way of God. How do I walk the way of God? How do I attach myself more to the way of God? What's happening right now in Israel, of course, has all Jews and the supporters of Israel a little bit on edge. We're a little bit worried. And we really want peace, but we're beginning to think it ain't going to be in the foreseeable future.
If I can,
Yes, sir.
for just a minute, I'd like to personally answer Guy's question that he posted. And that question was, I hate to sound stupid, but why would Israel allow Arabs in their government? You know, that's a good question, and I'm going to give you a direct answer to it. When Israel started in 1943, or I'm sorry, 1948, when Israel got underway, they promised all that came to help build Israel were permitted, would be allowed to live and be citizens of Israel. Okay, the Israeli people, we are not a group of people that says, all right, nobody can live here unless they're a Christian, or nobody can live here unless they're a Muslim, or unless they're a Jew. We're not that kind of a country. If you are a citizen of the country of Israel, then, no matter what your religion, you get voted into office, that's fine. The Knesset allowed this lady who was Arab to really be very disruptive. I don't even know if they finally booted her out or put her in prison because she was actually giving away secrets, stuff that she was not supposed to share that she had knowledge of. Our process is a little bit different than other people in that we don't care what religion you are. If you're for the people of Israel, you're welcome to serve on the Knesset. And that is how the government of Israel works. So I understand and I agree with you. I have battered my head against the wall. Maria, welcome. It's good to see you. So what you've asked, Guy, is a very important question. The people who are Arabs are supposed to love all people, whether they're Jews, whether they're Muslims, and we've had a lot of conflict with it. So it's a good question. I don't have a good answer.
I want to welcome Asher Gutierrez and Sonia Hidalgo Zorita as well. I would actually like to chime into Guy's question too. From a Zionist perspective, and I consider myself to be a pretty hard-nosed Zionist, to be quite honest with you, the reason Israel was reborn was the pogroms and the Shoah and the evidence that we're not welcome anywhere. As Reb Meir Kahane said in his open letter, which I'm going to look up right now for you. I have that for you in just a second. But as he said in his open letter, we have done so many things to try to please the world. It has not worked. And if it doesn't work for you, well, you know what? We're tired of trying. You're not going to prove Israel no matter what Israel does. So we're going to, or what we do as Jews living among you. So we're going to go home to our country. And that is pretty much what Israel did. It's called Dear World is the letter. And I'm going to post that right now. And I think that because that is such an important question, I'm going to go ahead and read that to you as soon as I finish my comment. Israel seriously wanted to live in peace with all of its Arab neighbors. And so when the United Nations was drawing up the boundaries for Israel, the Israelis were very willing to make amends and make concessions to the Arabs in the hopes that we could live together with the Arabs in peace. That did not work. Because of that desire, however, the Israeli Constitution did not declare Israel to be a Jewish country. It did recently, but it did not until now from 1948. But Israel was always understood to be the nation of the Jews. There are many people, myself included, who are sad that Israel is a democracy. The Israel that will be a theocracy. The Israel that is a parliamentary democracy. But many of us believe that we are losing our nation because of it. Because as Arabs continue to come in and continue to have children, whether they're Muslim Arabs or Christian Arabs, we are being overrun. And so we are having people voted into our office who should not be in the Knesset. I personally am a supporter of Moshe Begun. I would like to see Moshe Begun's plans being implemented in Israel. I admire Netanyahu. I respect Netanyahu, but Israel deserves better. Israel deserves someone like Moshe Begun, someone who sincerely wants to make the country of the Jews into a Jewish country. So Israel, like any other secular country, has warring factions within it. It has its own far right and far left. The way that the Knesset works is not like the American government works. We have two main parties to speak. We have minor parties that really don't matter. But we have two main parties here. Israel has a lot of parties. So every government has to be made of concessions between all of these parties, and it gets really, really confusing at times so that you really don't know what the party stands for. That's the way Israel chose to do it. I'm not criticizing them, but it's a very chaotic system, the way they do it in Israel. But if Israel is to continue into the future, assuming that Mashiach is not here in a lifetime or in a generation or two, it really needs to decide whether or not it wants to be a democracy or a Jewish nation under Jewish law. I vote for a Jewish nation under Jewish law. But that really is the decision of the citizens of Israel, not we Jews living outside of Israel. I support whatever the Israeli Jews decide to do with their country, including give entirely too much power to people who are, by their own opinions, our enemies. That is what they do. It's a little bit stronger than what Donald said, and it's a little bit lighter than what I would say if we were talking at a coffee table, quite frankly. But that is essentially my view. I think Israel needs to become an intentionally Jewish country, and certain things should be changed to make that happen. I don't want to see the Orthodox take control and force people to become kosher compliant, shut down all traffic on Shabbat, for instance. I don't want to see that happen. I don't want forced Orthodox control. But I want to see it made very clearly that Israel is the Jewish country. And it's not going to be firmly based on the Torah until the coming of Mashiach, and it probably shouldn't be, but it needs to be a decidedly Jewish country, in my humble opinion. Right now, it's not. Guy says, it's Israel that's my thought, and I just can't get, and I get a headache. I get a headache thinking about it too. And why on earth Israel allows Muslims to stand above the kotel and throw rocks at us, I don't understand. And why the very rational decision to put metal detectors at the entrance to the Dome of the Rock so they couldn't come up there with machine guns. They protest because we don't have to go through metal. If you go to the kotel, you go through metal detectors. Why can't they go through metal detectors? Anyway, not my call. It's up to Israel. I support Israel no matter what. Israel has my unconditional support. And I wish they made better decisions sometimes. I can say the same thing about my country, the United States. I support the United States, and the United States makes some incredibly stupid decisions sometimes. Welcome to Maria Mills. Glad that you're here. Maria says, Shalom, Rabbi Shlomo, Ahuva, and Donald, and everyone. Guy says exactly my thought. Bushra Hannah Paul has joined us. Yuka Nurmi, I think it's Yuka, right? Yuka Nurmi says hello from Finland. And Bushra says, Shalom, Hashem bless you all, my dear Rabbi from Vienna. Thank you, Bushra. Glad you are with us, and I'm honored that you feel about me as your rabbi. I truly do appreciate that. So I now want to post Rabbi Meir Kahana's piece, Dear World. And I think this really answers this question better than I can. So let me take a drink of water to moisten my lips. And let's read Rabbi Meir Kahana's open letter to the world, Dear World. Written on November of 1988, shortly before he was murdered in New York City by a Hamas terrorist. Dear World, it appears that you are hard to please. I understand that you are upset over us here in Israel. Indeed, it appears that you're quite upset, even angry and outraged. Indeed, every few years you seem to become angry over us. Today, it's the brutal repression of the so-called Palestinians. Yesterday, it was Lebanon. Before that, it was the bombing of the nuclear reactor in Baghdad and the Yom Kippur war campaign. It appears that Jews who triumph and who, therefore, live upset you most extraordinarily. Of course, dear world, long before there was an Israel, we Jewish people upset you. We upset a German people who elected Hitler, and we upset an Austrian people who cheered his entry into Vienna, and we upset a whole slew of Slavic nations, Poles, Slovaks, Lithuanians, Ukrainians, Russians, Hungarians, Romanians. And we go back a long, long way in the history of making the world upset. We upset the Cossacks of Chemionica, who massacred tens of thousands of us between 1648 and 49. We upset the Christian Crusaders, who, on their way to liberate our Holy Land, were so upset at the Jews that they slaughtered untold numbers of us. We upset for centuries a Roman Catholic Church that did its best to define our relationship through inquisitions. And we upset the arch enemy of the church, Martin Luther, who, in his call to burn the synagogues and the Jews within them, showed us a very admirable Christian ecumenical spirit. It is because we became so upset at upsetting you, dear world, that we decided to leave you, in a manner of speaking, and to establish a Jewish state. The reasoning was that living in close contact with you as resident strangers in the various countries that comprise you, we upset you, we irritated you, we disturbed you. So what better notion then than to leave you, and thus to love you, and to have you love us? And so we decided to come home, to the same homeland from which we were driven out over 1900 years earlier by a Christian world that apparently we also upset. Alas, dear world, it appears that you're just hard to please. Having left you and your pogroms and your inquisitions and your crusades and your Holocaust, having taken our leave of the general world to live alone in our own little state, we continue to upset you. You are upset that we repress the poor so-called Palestinians. You are deeply angered over the fact that we do not give back the lands of 1967, which are clearly the only obstacle there is to peace in the Middle East. Moscow is upset, and Washington is upset. The Arabs are upset, and the gentle Egyptian moderates are upset. Well, dear world, consider the reaction from a normal Jew in Israel. In 1920, 21, and 29, there were no territories of 1967 to impede peace between Jews and Arabs. Indeed, there was no Jewish state to upset anybody. Nevertheless, the same oppressed and repressed Palestinians slaughtered hundreds of Jews in Jerusalem, Haifa, Safed, and Sfat, and Hebron. Indeed, 67 Jews were slaughtered one day in Hebron in 1929. Dear world, why did the Arabs, the Palestinians, so-called, massacre 67 Jews in one day in 1929? Could it have been because they were angry over Israeli aggression in 1967? And why were 510 Jewish men, women, and children slaughtered in the Arab riots that happened between 1936 and 1939? Was it perhaps because the Arabs were upset over 1967? And when you, world, proposed a UN partition plan in 1947 that would have created a Palestinian state alongside of a tiny Israel, and the Arabs cried and went to war and killed 6,000 Jews, was that upset stomach caused by the aggression of 1967? And, by the way, dear world, why did we not hear your crying out then that you were upset? The poor Palestinians who today kill Jews with explosives, with fire bombs, with stones, are part of the same people who, when they had the territories that they now demand to be given to them for their state, attempted to drive the Jews into the sea. The same twisted faces, the same hate, the same cry of Idba al Yahud, slaughter the Jews, that we heard and we see today, we saw and we heard then. The same people, the same dream, destroy Israel. What they failed to do yesterday, they dream to do today. But of course, we should not oppress them. Dear world, you stood by the Holocaust and did nothing. You stood by in 1948 as 7 states launched a war that the Arab League proudly compared to the Mongol massacres. You stood by in 1967 as Nasser, wildly cheered by mobs in every Arab capital of the world, vowed that he would drive the Jews into the sea. And, truth is, you would stand by tomorrow if Israel was facing extinction. And since we know that the Arabs, the Palestinians, daily dream of that extinction, we will do everything possible to remain alive in our own land. And if that bothers you, dear world, well, think of how many times in the past you've bothered us. But in any event, dear world, if you're bothered by us, here is one Jew living in Israel who could care less. Rabbi Meir Kahane. Joshua 24:15 says, "If it displeases you to serve Hashem, choose today who you will serve, whether that be the gods which your fathers served on the other side of the Yarden, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my household, we shall serve Hashem." Rabbi Kahane's words ring truer with each passing day. May his wisdom and his martyrdom inspire us all to action, to even greater Torah observance. On the evening of November 5th, 1990, this great Israeli rabbi and politician, Meir Kahane, held a speech in the second-floor lecture hall of the Marriott Hotel in Manhattan, located at 525 Lexington Avenue, to an office of mostly Orthodox Jews. After his speech, a crowd gathered around the Rebbe, and as he answered, shortly after 9 p.m., an armed assassin, disguised as an Orthodox Jew, approached Rabbi Kahane and shot him with a .357 caliber pistol. The rabbi was hit in the neck and died of his wounds shortly thereafter. After this assassination, the assassin fled from the hotel and returned to Lexington Avenue, where, in front of the local post office, he attempted to take over a taxi at gunpoint. Carlos Acosta, an on-duty police officer, drew his pistol and ordered the assassin to freeze. Instead, the assassin turned towards the officer and shot him in the chest. The officer shot back, hitting the suspect in the chin. Afterwards, the suspect was arrested. The rabbi's killer was a Muslim, Egyptian-born, American citizen, Hamas supporter named El Sayed Nosser, then living in Jersey City. So, dear world, here's a Jew living in Chattanooga, Tennessee, who could not care in the least if you're upset with us. And if Israel, in its wisdom, determines that it needs to wipe out Hamas, by whatever means it needs to use, here is one Jew who will say, Amen. It's sad. It breaks my heart. It's a terrible, terrible thing that we live in a world where such things are necessary. But I, for one, have had it. Following the Shoah, at the birth of Israel, a declaration was made loud and clear, never again. Well, friends, never again means not now either. Israel is going to do whatever Israel needs to do in order to survive. If these people insist on continuing to kill our people, to bomb us, to kill our children, to condemn us before the world, I, for one, believe Israel has not only the right, but the responsibility to put an end to it, if they can. And Israel can. Guy says, as my pap always used to say, if it's tight if it's tight, it's right, meaning it may be harsh, but it's the right thing to do no matter what. Susan Connor says it makes me cry. Same here. One thing that we know as Jews, however, and we recite it every Pesach, in every generation, some group among the Gentiles come to destroy us. Some groups have been trying to do it for millennia. There are some today who wish to kill our bodies. And there are some today who wish to kill our souls through assimilation and conversion away from Judaism. Both are our enemies. Both are intentionally trying to harm us. If you love Israel, love Israel. Don't try to convert us. Support our country's existence. Be kind to your fellow Jew or to the Jews. And if you do, as Bereshit Genesis 12:3 promises, God will bless those who bless Israel. That means the people and the country. And God will curse those who curse Israel. And despite all of this cursing and all of this suffering, as recorded in Isaiah 52-54, the suffering servant, the Jewish people, will emerge from all of this darkness victorious. And through us, through the Jewish people, Hashem has, is, and will bless the entire world. Bushra Hannah Paul says, it makes me cry, and I wish never again and again. Jews are blessed and chosen through Hashem. Thank you for that, Bushra. I appreciate the kind thoughts, kind words. Guy says, thanks, Rabbi. Shlomo, you too. Dennis says, powerful. For those that don't see tomorrow, Shabbat Shalom. Some amens. Maria says, Rabbi Shlomo, thank you so much for what you're teaching us. And David Cohn says, Amen. This point really needs to be made very, very clear. Throughout history, the Jewish people have been kind-hearted. When you read in the Torah, when the Israelites are commanded by God to go into these pagan villages and towns, many of whom have been attacking us, in certain cases, and not all by the way, in certain cases, Hashem told our ancestors to kill every man, woman, child, animal, everything, utterly obliterate them. And how did the Israelites react? We disobeyed God. It is not within the heart, it is not within the psyche of the Jewish people to do such a thing. Throughout history, the Jews have been a soft-hearted people. And because of history, the Jews have learned that despite the sadness it brings to us, despite how heartbreaking it is at times, never again means not now either. This does not mean that the Jewish people are or should be bullies. It does not mean we should enjoy inflicting pain and sorrow on our enemies. It breaks most Jews' hearts at the very thought of having to do that. But the fact of the matter is, enough's enough. And never again means not now either. And I totally support, as I've said, anybody who supports Israel and anybody who opposes Israel, especially who bombs Israel, who condemns Israel, who attacks Israel. I fully support the right of the nation, I don't like the word state, by the way, the nation of Israel to defend itself. They have my 100% blessing, and if I was younger, I would go and join the IDF. There's reasons I didn't do it when I was younger. But I know more, you learn more with wisdom, you learn more with age. If I could do it, I would be doing what my friend David, if you're still here, David Breimer, did. David Breimer is an American hero, literally. And he's also a Jew. He chose, after leaving the U.S. military, to go to Israel and serve in the IDF. Didn't have to. Chose to. That's where David is right now. So I'm always pleased when he's able to come on. Don't know if he's watching on a cell phone from a training school or what, but David is a hero. And he is a hero who is standing with our people, and I think it's awesome. And if I had the youth and the health, I would absolutely be there side by side with David.
By the way, Rabbi, David did mention he's actually watching us from boot camp.
Yeah, I knew he was in boot camp, but I wasn't sure exactly where. Yeah, David and I are. Yeah, David and I are in pretty close contact, which is wonderful. And David's sister-in-law was on the broadcast with us last week, and I'm honored to be maybe assisting her a little bit with some of her Hebrew learning here in quote unquote real life. This is real life because you are real people. But I just, enough is enough. Stand with Israel. Donna says, Susan, can you please post the link to those who don't have it already? Yeah, I posted it earlier, but thank you, Susan, for posting it again. That's the link to our new Karuv Media Network. If you look at the link, you'll see how ugly the link is. It's YouTube channel and then just a bunch of gobbledygook. We need to get 100 subscribers so that we can get a custom URL. Like if you go to mine, it is All Faith Vids is my URL. And so we want to have a custom URL for our YouTube channel, which means we need you to go subscribe to it. I believe that you have to have a YouTube channel, a YouTube account, not a channel, but a YouTube account. That's easy to sign up for. Even if you don't use YouTube, please go and just make an account so that you can join our channel. Right now, last I looked, I think we had, what was it, Susan, 43? So we're almost halfway home. So please, please, please help us at the Karuv Media Network. And again, for those who joined us later, the Karuv Media Network is now the home of all broadcasts from the House of Seven Beggars, including our Sabbath services and including Rabbi Ariel Nachman and Chaim's classes that will be resuming after the High Holy Days. I'm gradually moving my stuff there as well. So you're going to have plenty of videos to watch. Our plan is to invite people, to qualified people, to do shows, so that anytime that you go there, you will find someone live and broadcasting. We've got at least 3 people I know of that we're seriously thinking about. One is this awesome 13-year-old. This guy is amazing. 13 years old. And he is, we don't do missionaries, but if we did, this kid's awesome. He has agreed to do a show. We haven't set the details up yet. There's some great things coming to the Karuv Network, and I really do hope you'll all join us for that. Gradually, all of my things are being moved over there. After I finish each book, I'm going to start the next book on the Karuv Media Network. So that's my plan, at least. So when we finish Derech HaShem, the next book will be on the Karuv Media Network. So please, please, please join us there. I really hope you can do that with us.
You say that so there's no confusion here, Rabbi. Are you saying that you will no longer be having the broadcast on Facebook? Or are you saying that it will be made available both on Facebook and on the
Yeah,
group?
good question. David Deutsch and Leonardo and a few other good friends are helping us figure out how to simulcast. Facebook changed their policy so you can't do a straight simulcast anymore from YouTube. But I'm told, and in fact, David, I'm still waiting for your PM, by the way, if you're still watching. But I'm told by people in the know that it is now possible to do it anyway, even despite that change. What I want to do live streaming on both sites. If I can't, then what I plan on doing is posting a very prominent link before every broadcast saying we start at 12 noon. Please click this link, which will take you to the Crew Media Network. If people enjoy my broadcast, I'm hoping that they will all sign up for the Crew Media Network, whether they're watching on Facebook or on the Crew Media Network.
I'd also like to just chime in there long enough to say something. We know for a fact that literally hundreds of people watch your YouTube links. And this tells us that there are many people who are watching the show because of their work schedule. They can't be here and things of that nature. And so we need to make it clear that we also want them to join this other network. This is a very important thing. And I would invite everyone here to ask your friends and to mention to your friends about the various groups that we do have and invite them to join. However, and we're having an issue with this, if you add someone to our group, in order for them to be added, they need to answer the questions. So this raises a problem because then we have to send them a message that we can't add them without them answering those 3 questions or 2 questions, depending on which group it is. So please do let them know they are going to need to answer those questions.
Right.
For us.
Yeah.
I would appreciate that.
Unless you're someone that Donald and I or the admin really, really know. Like Guy had mentioned that he didn't answer him. Guy gets approved. But don't assume. If we haven't really had a lot of good conversation, like back and forth like we've had with Guy, please, please, please answer the questions. And if we have, it's still not a bad idea to answer the questions. So the idea, just to clarify this, I'm hoping that it will continue to be that you go to my wall, you click the video, and you watch it from Facebook. That's what I want. If not, if we can't get that working, then there will be a very clear link to click that will take you over there, and you can watch that way. But if you sign up over there, you can get the notices that it's coming up. You can get all of these kind of good things. I will still be using the same interface software encoder that I use here, so I can still click the invite friends button there as well. But it really would, we really would appreciate, though, if you would join, even if you're not planning on watching anything in our network, which I think you will, because we're going to have some really good stuff. We already have some good stuff. Please still, just to help us, sign up for this. Susan says still at 42. Come on, folks. Laura Kradish has joined us. Susan says the questions are kind of fun. Yeah, the questions do make you think. What do I believe? Where am I coming from? They're good questions, I think. It took us in our admin group, we battled around and tried to craft questions that would work good. So please do answer them. Guy says I'm not that good with pics, but with PCs. But could you just sign in to both Facebook and YouTube and use 2 video cards to run it? If I did that, I would have to have 2 cameras, 2 microphones, 2 everythings. Honestly, it's no harder if you just simply go to the Crew Media Network with the link Veronica posted, pull it down into your tab or however your bookmarks, however you save. It's really no harder to click that link than it is to click the Facebook link. It's just a matter of sorting to get used to it. But like I say, I'm really hoping that we can get it where we can simulcast. I think we're going to be able to. That's what I'm shooting for. But I do want to support, for a number of reasons, the new Karuv Media Network. Because one thing that it's going to do is we're not going to get the regular people that you hear everywhere else. We're looking for, I hate to use this term, but new talent. People who are just coming up. And give you new, clear voices that are exciting and that are filled with love and acceptance and warmth, and that are not froomer than thou, that are open to everybody. That's really what we want to do with this new one, and we want to have it so that anytime you come online, you can click it and either watch a new show or watch a video you haven't seen. We need your support for that, and so we truly would appreciate it. And at that, I would mention, if you go to allfaith.com, you can now donate to me from my homepage, allfaith.com. You can also go to the House of Seven Beggars website, sevenbeggars.com, and donate there to Rabbi A's work. We both could use your financial aid to make this thing really be what we're envisioning it to be. But if you can't, no problem. This is not about money. Not. If you got a little bit extra cash, we'd appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Let me ask you something. You made a statement earlier that is of concern. The software that Rabbi A is using does allow a lot of things, so we could have guests on the show and that kind of thing. If you are using the current program you're using, and you're doing this on YouTube, will you still have the same abilities there, or will you need to switch over to Rabbi A's system?
I don't actually know what system Rabbi A uses, but I can do everything Rabbi A can do. I do it different than he does because he uses two computers and meshes them together. I have two monitors. On the new YouTube channel, if you and I, for instance, were doing a broadcast, you would still be signing into Hangouts. I'd be simply pulling that over to my OBS software as I do, and instead of coming out on Facebook, it'll be coming out on Yahoo. No difference at all on our end.
Okay, yeah, the same thing that Rabbi A has.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
Rabbi A usually uses, it's a paid service, and now I can't think of the name of it. He doesn't use OBS, but it's essentially the same thing.
No, but I mean, you call in on Hangout and he connects you, I believe.
That's because I'm calling him. When he has Reb Ravain or someone on, he uses this other piece of software that's a professional software that he uses in his business. And so he doesn't use OBS. But But the effect is the same. And on our end, for our broadcast, nothing changes. The only thing that changes is the information that I put in OBS.
Got it.
So that's not going to change at all.
I think that, for the sake of this audience, I would like to see us be able to do it simultaneously, because we do have an audience here, and I realize that we have an opportunity to have more, eventually more, but, I still, I'm partial to those on Facebook.
I totally agree with you. Like I said, I'm doing everything I can figure out how to do to simulcast.
Yeah, we can discuss this part in private anyway.
Because Facebook changed their policies, and that's what's causing all this. But if we can't simulcast, there will be a very clear link. So right now, you in the browser, you click a link to watch the video, to watch us. Then you will click a link to watch us. It's just that instead of taking you to Facebook Live, it will take you to YouTube. But otherwise, it'll be the same thing. It'll be essentially what Rabbi A does for all of his services and stuff. But that's not because of Rabbi A's software. That's because of the interface that he's using with YouTube. And I can continue using my same interface. It's not going to be difficult at all for people to join us over on YouTube. I'm requesting.
Let's just hope that the amount of stink that got raised with Facebook allows Jewish programs to remain uninterrupted. That, they had a little issue with anti-Semitic groups on here, and they finally got that taken care of, I think.
Not all of it, but they also have issues with certain Jewish things as well. And there's been a lot of people who have been kicked off of Facebook that I don't think should have been, but they're carrying us, and I don't want to complain about Facebook. Facebook is giving us an awesome free service. So
Yes, they are.
they'll
They re-
decide they'll decide what their policies are. Hopefully they won't decide to come after us. So far, I frankly I don't know about. I think this includes you, but I am one of the few people in my Facebook orbit that has never been put in Facebook jail. Almost everybody I know has spent time in Facebook jail, which is a figure of speech. It means when Facebook says you can't come on Facebook for 90 days or whatever. I've never been done.
I have had it where I couldn't add people because I had so many added. Um,
Yeah.
but today that's not an issue at all because I only,
That's a totally different thing, though. That's a
keep up
totally
5,000.
yeah. That's a totally right. That's a totally different thing. I'm talking about people because of their content. Facebook has blocked them for a period of time. A lot of my friends speak about being put into Facebook jail. Facebook has pulled, I think, 3 or 4 posts that I've posted and has put 4 or 5 of my videos on hold because of potential, in their opinion, copyright violations because of the bumper music. But I always just click this link and it comes back on. But Facebook has been nice to me, and I really don't have a problem in my personal accounting with Facebook. I have no interest in leaving Facebook. Okay, Maria says she's never been in Facebook jail either. I was exaggerating. I'm sure most of my friends probably haven't been. But people like Pesach lives there. You can say anything you want to say on Facebook, but it does take a certain amount of discretion. You can't scream fire in a crowded theater. There's, some of my friends are like, well, free of speech, I'm going to say it the way I want to say it, and they end up in Facebook jail. But I talk about the same issues and my opinions on Islam and Christianity and politics and the president, whether Obama or Trump. Everyone knows where I stand at on these issues. But I just don't go out and get nasty with people. I just don't. There's no benefit in doing that, and that's what'll get you banned on Facebook. That'd be nice. There's no reason to be nasty to people. But anyway, God has blessed us. My intention is to be able to do this through streaming live to both places. I will absolutely keep everybody informed of this situation. I may decide by the time we get there to just do Facebook Live and then upload the videos to the new YouTube too. That's what I'm doing right now. But I would really like to be able to. I would like to see. I'd like to see the Crew Media Network take off. So again, if you haven't signed up for it, please, please, please sign up for it. I'm looking at the mascot right here, Donald, but he has chosen not to go back and look out the eastern gate. Come here, Caliph. Come here. Jump up. Here's the mascot. Here's Caliph. Caliph the Wonder Dog. He's a good boy. He's a good boy. He's a good dog. Get help them. That's our friendly mascot, Caliph. Let's see. Veronica, who was it posted last time? Veronica's not here. Susan. Susan posted it above, and let's see if I can copy and paste that, and I'll post it again here. I think that worked. Yeah, there we go. I just posted it for you here as well. The main reason we want you to sign up with the Crew Media Network, of course, is because that way you get the information, and we want to get the information out. Another practical reason is that we need to get at least 100 subscribers so that we can get our custom URL. So instead of having to type in channel/UCSILBIEH yada yada yada, you'll be able to put in YouTube channel Crew Media Network. So we appreciate your help with that by signing up with us on the Crew Media Network on Facebook, on YouTube rather. Guy says, my brother is a PC tech and programmer, had 4 monitors. You start far right and move left. It was like how your eyes move in real life, much more like anywhere. That's what I've got. I've got 2 that I can move my cursor and go back and forth, but they're 2 totally separate pictures. So Donald is on one monitor and I'm on the other monitor. And then at the end of the broadcast, I replaced Donald with the logo of the group or the streamer or whatever. So that's what I do. I wouldn't actually mind having a 3rd monitor, but that's sort of overkill, I think. I think I can do what I need to do with 2. Thank you, Dave. We appreciate it. Now it's 43. Yay. If you would be kind enough, like Donald said, to let your friends know about the Karuv Media Network, that would be truly awesome. And right, Rabbi A and myself will be very grateful to you, because my attitude has always sort of been, if Hashem wants it to grow, it'll grow. Rabbi A has always sort of been in the opinion, if Hashem wants it to grow, it'll grow. But we're now sort of getting inspired, and we're thinking, we're not really concerned about numbers, but we're doing the work anyway. We might as well help more people, reach out to more people. So that's what, now we really are trying to get our numbers up, and it really is for that reason, I might add.
I'd like to see this all happen if we can before the High Holy Days, and I do want to say thank you to Rabbi A, because, as you know, I had a concern with whether or not we were going to have Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and it is so nice to know, for those of us that cannot get to shul, to have our shul and to be able to attend shul on the internet has been a lifesaver for me, as you know, and I think I told you I used to cry because the doctors would not allow me to attend, and when I did, I got very ill. Just, my health is not that great.
Right. No, Rabbi A has done the House of 7 Beggars does all major Jewish holidays.
Baruch Hashem for everything that the 2 of you now will be doing. And, this is just absolutely phenomenal.
I was just checking over on his website. He hasn't posted the information for the High Holy Days yet. Here in the screen, I will post this weekend's schedule of Shabbat services. But to my knowledge, the House of 7 Beggars was the first and remains the only full, complete Jewish synagogue on the internet. There are, like the Central Synagogue, I think they call it in New York, has their Sabbath services broadcast, but that's it. We have our Sabbath services. The rabbi teaches weekly classes. I teach weekly classes. We do all the High Holy Days. We do the Misha Barak list. We do the yard sites. We do the whole enchilada. We are a community of people together in the House of 7 Beggars. We are a virtual synagogue. And I believe we are the only virtual synagogue that there is online, as far as being a complete synagogue with trained rabbis and all the High Holy Day services and everything. So it is quite a blessing that Hashem has led Rabbi A to do all the work that he's done to make this happen. Welcome to Howard Zimmer, Freddie Cohen, Yosef. Maria says, I have never been in Facebook jail either. Oh, yeah, we saw that one earlier. I guess that most people, really, if you're polite, you're not going to get there. There's no need to be mean to people. Mark Bodkins has joined us. Lillian Kend has joined us again. Donald says hello again. And Lillian says hello. Glad you're here with us. So, the dogs are going to go off? Oh, she's here? Okay, that's fine. If you hear dogs barking in a couple of moments, that's because we have a guest who's coming for a huva. So do we have any other questions or comments about this?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. David Hahn said, so that is not an observant shul. And I wish to beg to differ with you, David. It is an extra.
I know why David's asking that question. Let me explain this.
Okay.
We are very observant. Well, Rabbi A is very observant. I try to be observant. I'm not as observant as Rabbi A is, to be quite honest with you, but I do my best. Okay, Orthodox halakha is that we are not allowed to create a spark of electricity on Shabbat. Therefore, what Dave is saying is that how can you do a Sabbath service on the internet? If I'm reading you correctly, David, I think that's your question. The way we do it is the same way that Orthodox people, we're Orthodox, the same way that Orthodox people will use Sabbath elevators in Israel, the same way that we use Sabbath ovens, the same way that many of us will use Sabbath lights. We use solar lights and we leave them on before Shabbat. The halakha is that we're not permitted to create a spark on Shabbat. So what we do is we turn our computers on before Shabbat. We do not turn them off until after Shabbat, after Havdalah. We're not creating any electrical sparks. If it is permissible to use a Sabbath elevator in Israel or New York, if it is permissible to use a Sabbath stove, it's permissible to do this. We have spoken with many people in the Jerusalem hierarchy of the chief rabbinate and explained what we're doing. Rabbi A has. And they have no issue with what we're doing at all. We strongly recommend that those Jews who join us for the broadcast turn their computers on prior to 18 minutes before Shabbat. So at least 20 minutes before Shabbat, turn on your computer. Go to the House of Seven Beggars on now the Crew Media Network. And you will see that what we do is we have a timer that goes down telling you when the service is going to start. That's done automatically by YouTube. When that timer goes off, the broadcast starts. If everything's working right. So we suggest that people who attend the services simply have the computers turned on and have the web page open up to the shul, and then don't turn them off until after Havdalah. If you do that, you're not violating any halakha. There is a question that some people have, and I don't think you can halakhically support it, that says that you cannot open a web page. There's no halakha for that because it doesn't cause a spark to open a web page. We don't type on Shabbat because we are prohibited from typing 2 letters or more because 2 letters would make a Hebrew root. So technically, halakha allows you to type 1 letter but not 2. Although rabbis have also ruled that on the internet we're not actually typing because this is all cyber stuff. So maybe you could. That's a debate, but we don't type on the Shabbat. So you'll notice that in the services we don't type. Most of the observant people who come to the services will sometimes put like a smiley face because they have the buttons. You just click it one time. So that's how we do it. So this is totally harmonious with halakha. The reason that Rabbi A originally started this was that he was a synagogue rabbi up in Michigan. This is my take on this. Is what my understanding of the story. Might not be exactly accurate, but when he left being a rabbi in the synagogue, there were people in the shul who were not able to attend the services in the shul because they were disabled, because they were too old. So Rabbi started the House of Seven Beggars for those people, so that shut-ins would have a way to experience the joy of an Orthodox Shabbat service. As time went by, people began coming who were younger, who were healthy, but who lived too far from a shul to get there. Others came who were not welcome in a shul for one reason or another. So people come to the House of Seven Beggars for many different reasons. Rabbi A is always very clear, and I'm always very clear, if you have a local shul, it's better to go to your shul than to join us. Join us for our weekly broadcast. Go to your local shul. We're not trying to replace the shul, God forbid. Because even though we are a shul, it's not the same thing as a brick and mortar shul, and we fully acknowledge that. But if you can't get to a shul, this process does not violate any halakha, and you can be with us. I may have beat it into the ground a little bit too much, David, but it's a very important question. And we do want to make sure that everybody understands the reasoning behind why we do it and how we do it. In fact, I was talking to Rabbi. He was sort of, last Sabbath, I did my first leading of services at the shul. And so Rabbi A critiqued me on certain points. And he liked it. So that was good. I was a relief because I was sort of concerned that maybe he wouldn't, some part of it, except for a couple mistakes I made. But one of the things that he said, and I thought it was true, was that I'm not supposed to use this. He doesn't want me to use this headset because I look like an operator or something, which it looks like work. So I'm using, let's see if you can see it. Yeah, I'm using this one for the Sabbath services because I don't have to touch it. Problem was I had it like this because this is a monodirectional, or whatever you call it, Mike. So I have to speak directly into it to be heard. He doesn't want me to be able to see it, so I need to be down like that because we don't want to give the appearance that we're online. We want people to feel as though they have come to their local shul. Neither Rabbi A or I are rich, and frankly, this is my den. He has a small room that he uses for his. So it's not actually a traditional shul, but we want to try to give that impression as best we can.
Please tell people that you're not rich. There could be Muslims listening who are telling people how we own everything.
Yeah, we have a lot of we have a lot of stereotypes about Jews, and believe me, they are not rich. Probably everybody in this audience makes more money than I do. I am very poor, but so Hashem though is very, very merciful, and so what we're trying to do is we're trying to give you the feel of a synagogue. Behind me, this chest behind me is going to become the ark once I get my Torah scroll, which should be pretty soon, I hope. But we're trying, and that, to me, that carries a lot. We're trying. We're trying to have a synagogue that is open to everybody, who is respectful, who is sincere about wanting to serve Hashem, and that type of thing. Susan says, I cool ahead and leave my oven on throughout Shabbat. A lot of people do that too, yeah. And a lot of them will leave it where it's just barely on to heating, because part of the halakha is you can keep your food in the oven warm, but you can't cook it. And there's a certain temperature at which the rabbis have ruled that if it's higher than that temperature, you're cooking it. You can't cook on Shabbat. So it has to be below that. And that's enough, though. If you cook the food before Shabbat, you keep it in your oven to make sure it's safe. God forbid you should have a fire because of this. But so a lot of times we have these separate little ovens to keep things warm instead of using our main oven. But it'll keep it safe, and the next day you have nice warm food to do. The Huva and I usually eat sandwiches and cold cuts or whatever. But so we don't usually have warm food on Shabbat. But either way is fine. David says, got it. Thank you for your explanation. Thank you for raising the question, David, instead of just making assumptions. A lot of people do that. We want people to really understand this is a real shul. These are actual Orthodox services. We are actual ordained Orthodox rabbis. We're Sephardic, but Sephardic rabbis. It's a service that we're trying to present to people as gifts of love. And it's important to understand that there is a halakhic way of doing this. And again, I always like to point out, if you're not Jewish, you're not under these rules. If you're Jewish, turn your computer on and off all Shabbat if you want to. It's not a problem. Although most Noahides I know that are sincere try to not do that as well as a choice. But thank you for that, David. I truly do appreciate your question. Donald says, if you live where I live, you can keep food on top of you. Yeah, I know. It's, right now it's like that here too, Donald. It's really hot out there. David said, it's a wonderful thing that you're doing. Thank you. Thank you, David. And again, I truly do appreciate it. Do you have any other questions or comments on anything before we close out today's broadcast? And again, thank you. Thank you, David, for that question. I do appreciate that because it is a very important issue. We often like to point out that Rabbi Nachman of Breslov was asked by a person who was a Bel Teshuv, who was a Jewish person who wasn't really practicing their religion. He met in real life, he met Rabbi Nachman, and he was so inspired by the Rebbe. And so he said, okay, I'm just coming up to this stuff, and I'm very sincere. And from now on, I'm going to be totally kosher. I'm going to follow all of the laws, all the rules. I'm not going to take 3 steps without my tzitzit or my. Rabbi Nachman said, what are you doing? Don't do that. You're going to burn out immediately. Don't do that. Choose one mitzvah, one mitzvot that you can do that you're not currently doing. To the best of your ability, without being a fanatic, observe that mitzvot fully in all of its details. And then do all the other ones as best you can. And then when that mitzvot becomes sort of part of who you are, take on another mitzvot. Gradually increase your service to Hashem. Gradually increase your observance in a real way that makes your soul have joy. Because Rabbi Nachman was also clear that the way that you can tell a truly observant Jew is that an observant Jew will be happy. Because an observant Jew will have a personal communion with Hashem. A personal Jew will know that everything that happens in my life happens by the will of Hashem. Everything that happens by the will of Hashem happens for a purpose, and that purpose is for my best. If I know that, how am I not going to be happy? And that's why we always say, Baruch Hashem, for the good and for the not so good, seemingly. Because we don't really know what's good and what's not good. You win the lottery, you think, oh, that's a great thing, and the money destroys your life. You lose your job and think, oh, that's a terrible thing. But it opens the door to a wonderful job, new friends, new people, and it builds. So David, yeah, exactly, David. So David said they will have Emunah. Exactly. So when you observe this new mitzvah, you will say to yourself, I'm doing this, and this is good, and Hashem is blessing me. And that builds up your Emunah, which is to say your active faith. That builds my faith. And then I think, I could do another one. So you look at the 613 commandments, and you say, I'm doing that one, I'm not doing that one, I'm going to try that one. That's going to be a little bit tougher, but with Emunah, I can do it. And you apply yourself to it. At the end of a month, if you find that you just can't do it, that's okay. Baruch Hashem, it's not time for you to do that one. Try another one. If they work, incorporate them into your service. If they don't work, that's okay. It's okay. Hashem does not put people under distress. And so only you can decide how to be observant. Only you can decide how much of the kosher laws you're going to follow. Only you can decide whether or not you're going to do the 3 daily prayers. Only you can decide if you're going to say Shema before you go to bed at night. Only you can make these decisions. Nobody can make them for you. You do that. You do that with a sincere heart, and if your desire is to know Hashem, your Emunah, like David said, your Emunah will bring you to success. Just keep building your Emunah. If you want to be a weightlifter and you're a 90-pound weakling, you're going to have to work out until you become a weightlifter. And it's going to take time, it's going to take work, it's going to take intention. But with intention and patience, you can do it. Guy says, thank you, Rabbi. Bless you and bless all listening. Have a good afternoon. Thank you all. I truly do appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and close with my friends, the Brills. God bless you all. Thanks a lot. So remember to join us tonight at 8 p.m. Susan says, Modiani before you get out of... Yeah, Modiani before you get out of bed. It's easy. You're laying in bed. If you're like me, I'm a slow waker. I really do the Modiani with quite a bit. Yeah, because I'm half asleep. I wake up slowly. Do the Modiani when you wake up. It really will set the course of your whole day. It's amazing. If you don't do anything else, do the Modiani when you first wake up. Modiani lefanecha melachai v'kayom shekazarta bi nismoti b'him l'rba imunateka. It will waken you to... I was just fixing to log out, but I probably should get that for you because people are going to be saying, what's the Modiani? I've never heard of that. Let's see here. Let me go over to here and to here and find Mode ani lifaneka. All right, here is a beautiful, I think, a very nice presentation of the Modi'ani. Let's see, does it have the words? Yeah. Here is the prayer itself. It's more of a blessing than a prayer, but here it is. In the chat screen, you'll see that. So when we wake up in the morning, before we get out of bed, before we're even half awake, we're saying, thank you, Eternal King, for giving me my body. Forgive me back my soul in mercy. Modi'ani lifaneka malachi vikayom. You'll see it here on the chat screen. And if you click the link to the video, you will see a nice video that I did with a recording of the Modi'ani. Thank you that for Susan. Mary says Modah for women. Yeah, so anyway, there's all these prayers. we have a blessing for everything. If you remember Fiddler on the Roof, there's a part in Fiddler on the Roof where they come up to the ancient rabbi. Says, Rabbi, is there a blessing for the Tsar? He says, there's a blessing for everything. May God bless and keep the Tsar far away from us. There's a prayer for everything. Try it. Check it out. You'll find that it does, in fact, work. A reminder again, if you're not Jewish, you're going to have to be a little bit selective. You can say the Modi'ani, but be sure you don't want to recite established prayers that say things like, Our Father Avraham, who led us out of the wilderness, because you were never in the wilderness with those people. So make sure the prayer is appropriate for you. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and end this one. Thank you all so much for watching. Donald already said his goodbye before we started talking again. So my background changed. It's supposed to be on... I think my computer must have done an update during our broadcast, which is really weird because it changed. I think it changed. Hang on just a second here. Learn Emunah. Here we go. There we go. Learn Emunah with Shlomo. This is the one that I was, this is the one that I thought was going to be up here already. So, thank you all for watching. God bless you. God keep you. May God cause his face to shine evermore upon each and every one of you.
שלושה דברים העולם עומד
על שלושה דברים העולם עומד
על התורה גמילוס חסדים
על שלושה דברים העולם עומד על שלושה Shall I show
Well, that was a weird one too. Thank you, friends, for watching. I appreciate it. God bless you all. We'll see you next time.